Hi, my name is Annie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make this Saguaro Cactus Flower Granny Square. This Granny Square is part of my State Flower Granny Square project, and the Saguaro Cactus Flower is the state flower of Arizona. A couple of things before we get started. First of all, this is an intermediate level tutorial, so I will show you how to make the square, but I will not go into a lot of detail for each individual stitch. So if you're very new to crochet, I would recommend you starting with one of my beginner-friendly tutorials. And another thing to mention is that this granny square is my original design. So I do ask you that you give me credit for the pattern whenever you publish pictures of your granny square, for example. I will include more detailed instructions for giving me credit for the design in the description of this tutorial, so you can check them out. To make this granny square, you are going to need 4 different colors of yarn. If you want to make your Saguaro Cactus Flower in 3 colors and then have this background color as well. I am using a DK weight cotton yarn for this granny square. Other things you need to make the square are, of course, a crochet hook that matches your yarn weight that you picked, a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. We are going to start our granny square from the middle. So we start by making this center that I have here in this darker yellow color. So go ahead and pick your first color. And I will start by making a slip knot. And then I chain 4. Four stitches, and then I join this into a ring by making a slip stitch here in this first stitch. You could also start your granny square with a magic ring if you prefer that method. Okay, and then I will chain 2. There we go. And now for this center part of the flower, we are going to need 8 half double crochet stitches. And this chain 2 that I just chained here is going to count as my first half double crochet stitch. So I will just work 7 more half double crochet stitches around this ring. So yarn over, and I insert the hook in the very middle, which is very hard to see for these first couple of stitches. In the middle of the ring. Yarn over, and I pull through those 3 loops. There we go. So right now I have 2 actual half double crochets and that initial chain 2 that counts as a half double crochet. So I'm going to need 5 more half double crochets around this ring. So I'm just going to go ahead and work them around the ring. So work yours as well and meet me back here. Now I have my 7 half double crochets plus that initial chain 2 that counts as a half double crochet. So now I can just go ahead and join this round. I chain one there, and then I can cut my yarn. And fast enough. We are ready to work the second round of the granny square. And this second round here is, I have used this lighter yellow color. And the second round is still kind of part of the center of this flower. So if you Google pictures of the Saguaro Cactus Blossom, you will find beautiful pictures of this beautiful flower. And you'll see that the center of the flower kind of has these two colors. So that's what I'm going to do for this granny square as well. And I will start by attaching my yarn. I like to attach my yarn with a slip knot. If you prefer a different way of attaching your yarn, feel free to use your way. And then I will attach my yarn into one of these stitches here on the outside of my work, or kind of the outside part of the stitch. I am using, by the way, my my weaving your ends as you go method to take care of all my yarn ends as I go. I'm not going to explain it in detail in this tutorial, but I will include a link to a separate tutorial in the description if you want to check it out. Okay, I have attached my yarn there, and I will start by chaining 2. And now for the second round, we are going to be working 16 double crochet stitches. And if you remember on the previous round, we had 8 half double crochet stitches. And now we work 16 double crochets, and we're going to be working 2 double crochets in each one of these stitches of the previous round. If you look here, you'll see that I have 2 double crochets in one stitch for the second round. And I just chain 2 here, and this chain 2 is going to count as my first double crochet. And then I will just go ahead and work a double crochet stitch in this very same stitch. I know some people like to chain 3 for a double crochet, which I think technically is the right way to do it, but I prefer doing 2 at the moment anyway, so that's what I'm doing for this one. Okay, so there we go. I have 2 double crochets in that first stitch because this chain 2 counts as a double crochet. And then I will just move on to the next stitch. So yarn over, insert in the next stitch, pull the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. There's my double crochet, and then I work a second double crochet in this very same stitch here. There we go. So now we can see that I have 4 double crochets, this initial chain 2 counting as a double crochet, and this is how I work all around this ring or this circle here. So 2 double crochets in each one of these stitches. So feel free to go ahead and work around the circle and meet me back here. I have worked my 16 double crochets in this center, and now I'm ready to join this round. So I'll just slip stitch here to join. Chain 1, and then I cut my yarn. fast enough. Next, we will make the petals of the flower. So we're going to be working now this white round. And I'm going to go ahead and attach my yarn again with the slip knot. And again, if you have a different way that you prefer of attaching your yarn, feel free to use that one. What I love about crochet is that often there is more than one right way of doing something. So it's important that you do whatever works for you. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach my yarn into one of these stitches here again. So kind of this outside part of the stitch. And then I chain one. Now this chain one doesn't really count as anything, okay? It just brings us to the right height for these stitches that we're going to be creating. So we're going to be working 16 puff stitches in each, one in each one of these stitches on the outside. So each petal is a puff stitch. So here I am. I have just chained that one that doesn't really count as anything. And for the puff stitch, I go yarn over, insert in that same stitch where I just chained that one and attach my yarn. I bring that yarn through and I pull these loops to the same height as this first stitch. So I don't want them to be pulling my hook down like that. I pull the hook up a little bit so that the stitches are a little loose there and they are all at the right height. Not too loose, okay? But just enough that it's at the right height. I do the same thing again and pull the stitches again. And right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on my hook. And I go one more time. So yarn over, insert in the same stitch still, bring the yarn through and pull those loops to the right height. And let's see how many loops I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And when I have 7 loops on my hook here, I stop and I go yarn over one more time and I pull through all of those loops on my hook. And then I chain one. And there is my first petal. I'm going to show you another one. So I have just chained that one there. I go yarn over. I insert in the next stitch now. Pull the yarn through. And again, make sure that you pull it to the right height. There we go. Yarn over, insert again, pull the yarn through, and I pull it to the right height. Yarn over, insert the hook, pull it through, pull the yarn through, and again, pull it to the right height. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 loops on my hook. So I go yarn over and I pull through all 7. I chain one and then I'll start my next petal, my next puff stitch in the next stitch. So go ahead and work 16 puff stitches in total, always working in one of these stitches of the previous round. If you need to see how we made that puff stitch, go ahead and rewind and watch how we made this one, because all the rest of the petals are going to be exactly the same way as this one. So work around and meet me back here. I have worked 16 puff stitches around the center of my Saguaro cactus flower, and now I'm going to go ahead and join this round. So I have just chained the one stitch here after the last puff stitch, and now I like to go not into a stitch here, but into this space between the first and the second petal, and I slip stitch there. And I chain one, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. And fast enough. We are ready to start working with our last color, the background color. For my granny square, I picked this green to kind of symbolize the cactus plants that has these beautiful flowers. And we are going to be creating 3 rounds in total with this next color. So go ahead and grab your last color. And as with the previous rounds, I will be attaching my yarn with a slip knot. And now I will attach it in one of these spaces between 2 puff stitches, 2 petals. Really doesn't matter which one. I'm going to be attaching it where I have the previous yarn end because I am using my weaving as you go method to take care of those yarn ends. So attach the yarn there. And then I chain 1, which doesn't really count as anything. And now for this first round with this background color, I am going to be working 3 single crochets into each one of these spaces between 2 petals. So 3 single crochets into each one of these spaces. So here I am. I have just chained that one that doesn't really count as anything. And then I'm just gonna go into this space, not into a stitch, into the space, and work a single crochet there. And another one. And one more. There we go. I have my 3 single crochets in that space. And then I'm just gonna move on straight into the next space. 3 single crochets. I had the background of this square worked a little bit differently, and I ended up adding this round after a lot of trial and error. And the purpose of this round here is that it makes the square the same size with my other state flower granny squares so that I can join them later easier. Okay, 3 single crochets in that space, and then I just go straight into the next one. 3 single crochets into this one as well. There we go. I love this round because you start to see these petals sort of separate and stand out a lot more. the flower is going to be so pretty once we finalize that round. So go ahead and work all around your square or your Saguaro cactus flower. 3 single crochets into each one of those spaces and meet me back here. I have worked 3 single crochets into each one of these spaces between the petals. So I'm ready to join this round, and I join it with a slip stitch here. There we go. And next we will start turning this circle into a square. So we're going to be creating these clusters of stitches based on this round that we just created. And for the corners, we're going to be doing double crochet clusters. And for the for the corners, we're going to be doing treble crochet clusters. And for the sides, we'll be doing double crochet clusters. And now each one of these clusters is worked in the middle of the space here between 2 petals. So we're going to be working them in the middle stitch of each one of those clusters. So I'm just going to go here and slip stitch in the middle. So I have 1 stitch here on the outside on that side and 1 stitch here on the outside. And I'm gonna start my first corner here. I will chain 3, which counts as my first treble crochet. And then I work 2 more treble crochets into that same stitch. There we go. Now I know some people like to chain 4 for a treble crochet there, which again I think is technically the right way to do it, but this is what I prefer at the moment at least, so that's what I'm doing. Chaining 3 for the treble crochet. So there's my first cluster of treble crochets, and I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work the second part of this corner, which is another cluster of treble crochets. And now here I skip 2 stitches and I work my treble crochet cluster again in this middle stitch here. So the way I count the stitches here for each one of these spaces between 2 petals is that this is the first stitch on that space, second and a third, and then this one I count on the other side. So I skip 2 stitches and I work the next cluster in the next one. So 3 treble crochets for this cluster. There we go. There's my first corner. And next I'm going to work my side. And for my side, I'm going to need 2 clusters of double crochets. So again, I skip 2 here, 1 and 2, and I go through the third one, which is the middle stitch here. And I work a double crochet there. and then 2 more double crochets in that same stitch. There's my first cluster of double crochets for the side, and then I will skip 2 again, 1 and 2, and I go to the 3rd stitch and I work my second cluster of double crochets. And there's my side. And next I will work my next corner. So treble crochet for the corner. I skip 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and again I go to the middle stitch. So there's my first cluster of treble crochets. I chain 2 for the corner, and I skip 2 stitches here, 1 and 2, and again in the 3rd stitch I work my next cluster of treble crochets. There we go. So this is how I work all around the square. So double crochets for the sides, treble crochets for the corners. Feel free to go ahead and work around the square. If you need to see how we make the rest of these sides, go back and see how we made this one, because all the rest of the sides are going to be the same way. And then for the corners, these 2 remaining corners are going to be exactly the same way as this one. So feel free to rewind, go back, watch it as many times as you need to, and work around your square, and meet me back here. I am ready to join this round now. So if I have counted my stitches correctly, I should have 1 and 2 stitches here before that initial chain 3. So I've always skipped 2 stitches between those clusters. So I'm just gonna slip stitch there to close the round. And now I'm actually going to slip stitch my way to the next corner where I'm going to start my next round. There we go. Now we already have a square here with this beautiful, beautiful Saguaro Cactus Flower in the middle. So for this square, I'm just going to be working 1 more round all around, and this last round is all granny stitches. My favorite stitch at the moment, at least. So granny stitches all around the square. And I'm here in the corner So I'm gonna work, granny stitch is those clusters of double crochets. So I'm actually going to start by chaining 2 here, which counts as my first double crochet for the cluster. And I work 2 more double crochets here. There we go. There's my first cluster of 3 double crochets. That initial chain 2 counts as my first double crochet. And then I chain 2. And I work another cluster of double crochets into this same corner space. There we go. There's my corner. So my corner is 2 clusters of double crochets separated by that chain 2 there in the corner. And now I'm just gonna go all around and work clusters of double crochets into each one of these spaces. So I just go straight into that next space and work a double crochet there. There we go. So I work 3 double crochets into that space, and that's how I will go all around. So work clusters of double crochets, 3 double crochets always in a cluster in each one of these spaces, and then for the corners 2 clusters of double crochets separated by a chain 2. Work all around the square and meet me back here. I have worked granny stitches all around my square, and now I'm just gonna go ahead and join this round with a slip stitch. And I chain 1 there, and then I got my yarn and fasten off. And here is my Saguaro Cactus Flower granny square. The only thing I have left is weaving in my ends, which I have been mostly taking care of while I made my square. So the only ends that I have are these 2 that I need to weave in and cut those short yarn ends there and block the square of course. But otherwise I'm all done. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Please leave me a comment, like this video, subscribe if you like this tutorial. And as mentioned in the beginning, this is my original design, so I ask you to please respect my design work and give me credit for the design whenever you publish pictures of your square or anything like that. I will leave you instructions in the description to make it super easy for you to give me credit for the design. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.